Hello everyone, this is Fi. Checking out a new game today. I'm not exactly sure what the title of this one is. I'm gonna have to ask the developer. It's got some Chinese characters. The executable is in Chinese characters. The name of the zip file I was delivered is CHZD. I don't know if that's the name. The other thing that I see on the game page here in parentheses is the words vertical STG. Which might mean vertical shooting game, but nonetheless, I don't speak Chinese. I don't know these characters, or Japanese for that matter, as I know they're used in both languages, but nevertheless, we're going to give this a shot. I'll figure out what to title the video later, but it appears to be a vertical shooter, and not much is mentioned on the game page here. It says delete all enemies. The closer you are to the enemy, the more points you get. It mentions gamepad or keyboard controls. For the keyboard, it says cursor keys plus S, D, and the spacebar, which is interesting because it's more of a WASD style grip. It's got a more typical, it's almost old-fashioned at this point, but for games to use like Z, X, and C, if they're using the arrow keys, but I kind of like how he's apparently using the S and D keys with the spacebar. That's cool in my opinion. Nevertheless, we're going to actually jump into this. It seems the background music here might be a little on the loud side. It's very common for me to playtest games, and the volume levels tend to be very high in many people's games. I always recommend check out some other game you have installed, or some other games on Steam or whatever, just to kind of get an idea of the general volume level compared to your own game. Nevertheless, hopefully it's okay in the capture. I turned it down a little bit. I've not seen anything past the screen. Again, I don't speak, or I can't read these characters, but let's go ahead and try the space bar. I do have my Xbox controller here. I might try the keyboard first real quick. I expect to do better with the gamepad. So yeah, I don't know what anything I'm looking at is. Okay, I can go left and right, and I have numbers at the top. And then I can go up and down, apparently. I don't know. Why does it start like this and then... like I'm pressing down and then it turns to this. I don't know what any of this means. I'm not sure if it's intentionally... it's supposed to be vague. Like it's supposed to give a sense of something unusual that you're supposed to figure out or something. So that being said, I'm just gonna kind of... this is the, I think the default state where it started was like this. I'm gonna go ahead and hit the spacebar. I will mention the background is pretty cool looking. Very interesting aesthetic. It does seem like the music got a lot quieter, the background music at this point, so I'm not sure if it's gonna get louder again. Spacebar does nothing. S? Okay, S key does something. Alright, so we got some... oh, okay, we got two different, oh, okay, we got two different attacks, and then the spacebar does whatever this is. Fortunately, I do not know. Okay, so I'm thinking it might be a pause, and then the second option is like return to the title screen or something. One thing I do want to mention real quick before I get any further into this is that... okay. Oh. Sorry for the notification sound. I'm gonna go ahead and mute this. And go back into this. But okay, so the escape key apparently quits the whole game as soon as you press it. That's sort of an old-fashioned thing, and it kind of fits along with the genre of this sort of indie shooter game. Nevertheless, you know, it is old-fashioned, and it is a lot nicer in my opinion if you have at the very least like a confirmation dialogue that pops up. So like if you hit the escape key, it'll show a little window, and then you can say do you want to quit, yes or no, that kind of thing, so it doesn't just immediately kick you out of the whole game. I think that's nicer. The other thing is it's nice to have like pause on escape in my opinion, so you could like pause the game. Also, like, you know, if you're in the menu here, it'd be nice to have it as like a back sort of thing. Sometimes it's nicer, that sort of thing. So it's sort of more modern standards we're talking about, but smaller details, but I think they matter. The other thing I was going to mention before I got interrupted is there doesn't appear to be any settings that I know of, and unless it's hidden in here somewhere, I don't know. Okay, maybe if you go up higher, it's like harder or something. I don't know. Or it's closer to an end boss or something? I'm just guessing at this point. I'm sorry, I got sidetracked on what I was going to say. There's no settings menu that I found, and the game is currently in borderless window mode for full screen. So, you know, there's two different types of full screen mode. There's borderless window, there's exclusive full screen. I always prefer to play games in exclusive full screen because not only do you get better, more consistent frames, but there's actually a small amount of input lag associated with borderless window mode. On the other hand, borderless window kind of has built-in VSync, and for a 2D game, it's often preferred to have some VSync enabled. Nevertheless, I like to have options for those things. So, like, for instance, I would probably prefer to play a game in exclusive full screen, but maybe enable VSync in that mode if I needed it. So just bringing that up, but we're gonna actually try this. I think I go ahead and hit the S key again. So we have two different shot modes. I can feel a little bit of the input lag and the movement, but it's not like super bad or anything. I'm not sure if there's inertia. I'm not really trying at this point. It doesn't look like you have any sort of forgiveness for if you take a hit here. If there is any inertia, it's very small, but like infinitesimal. But yeah, I'm just not used to the input lag. I've been playing games without VSync or anything for like a long time now, so I can definitely tell there's lag there. But let's give this a shot a little more serious for once. I guess I can. Oh, that makes this very slow. And this doesn't, apparently. We retain our full move speed with this one. Okay, that's cool. This doesn't seem particularly weak. This, I assume, is just... Is it just stronger? Alright, we're getting the more points from being close to the enemies. I gotta be better with the finessing the movement for that sort of thing. Visually it's quite interesting, so I do have some experience with shmups and kind of the concepts of some of the minute details of design that affects the play a lot. It's kind of distracting the audio trying to talk like over that with all the sounds going on and stuff. But yeah, so oh, this isn't good. So I don't really like that little spot that kind of gradually traps you like that. I don't think there's a way out of there. But yeah, one of the big things for this kind of game is the concept of visibility. Everything has to be very clear. And a lot of times, like the kind of the juiciness and the flashiness of the visuals can kind of be at odds with that concept of wanting to have everything very clear, wanting to see like exactly where all the bullets are, and you know, not have them covered up or anything. So far, it seems pretty okay. It seems like it's got the flashiness, and I don't see anything that's glaringly not visible. There's a lot of flashes on the screen and stuff, but nothing like really bad that I can tell. So I'm pretty okay with it so far. Some of these bullets are pretty flashy. Like if a bullet is strobing a lot, sometimes it could be like really rough to look at, but so far it's not too bad. I'm not sure if I want to have like the whole screen full of those rainbow ones that just rapidly change color like that. yeah, I mean, I am splitting hairs. Now, what do you do about this sort of thing? I guess you can squeeze between. Your hitbox is appropriately small, but it's not like 1 pixel, it seems. So I'll have to kind of get used to exactly how big or small the hitbox is. I'm gonna go ahead and grab the gamepad. Try this out. Looks like the A key doesn't work. Which key is what? Is this even working? It's not even working. Okay, let's try disconnecting it real quick. Still nothing. That's too bad. I was really looking forward to using the gamepad for this because it is much easier for me. Let me try and check the game page here real quick if I can get to it here. Gamepad or keyboard? Okay. Oh, that's too bad. Oh no. I'm really quite disappointed about that. I don't know if it's just not been fully implemented yet. I don't know if it is not had all the bugs worked out or something. It is an Xbox 360 controller. But yeah, you know, this kind of game you want to it's challenging enough, you want to do your best at it, and, you know, get as far as you can, and it's definitely not something that I'm as adept with the keyboard or but I guess we don't have a choice at this point. Maybe some point in the future I could give it a shot if it gets updated, but for now we're stuck with this. So yeah, the penalty, the movement penalty for this is really quite intense, but it could also potentially be useful also for if you want to maneuver between very tightly packed bullets like these. It might actually be helpful for that kind of thing, so that's cool. So it's nice to have that kind of duality of movement that can be attached to an attack or something like that in these kinds of games. So far it seems pretty, you know, pretty standard shmup stuff, but it's like done in a good way, so a lot of people get a lot of the fundamentals kind of wrong. And I'm not really seeing any of that in the game here so far, so definitely good to see. I assume this will kill these a little faster, maybe? We're getting a little, oh gosh, okay. It's definitely weird, these bullet patterns. Oops, I guess that was the back button. Now I gotta try and like figure out what the heck this thing does. Does it move me forward more in the level or something? Oh, okay, what? I don't know what it does. I don't know why there's like a circle around me. I guess there's a multiplier, X2 multiplier. Oh, that's really piercingly loud. So maybe you could tweak some of these. That's really hard to move through that stream of bullets, my gosh. Alright, so we got this situation here. I don't know how tightly... I guess the white parts of the bullets are probably the things that actually hurt you. It's a little hard to get in front of these guys right now. They're not really letting up, so I'm not sure. I'm kind of squeezing next to them. Crap. Okay. So yeah, some of these bullet patterns, you know, maybe there's some tweaks you can make. Those ones that just emit the giant waves. They're pretty hard to just like find a gap to get in to actually shoot them. So, you know, maybe you could have them like throw in a good pause once in a while and they're shooting, so you have a chance to clear them off the screen, because it seems like the type of game where if you don't clear stuff off the screen, you know, more just adds up and then things get problematic. I still don't know what this does. Oh, it looks like we actually did go to a boss. So maybe I was right about... Oh, shoot. Maybe I was right about that. I forgot the escape key actually just closes the whole game. As I mentioned, I'm used to that being like a pause. You know, open up a menu and you could like exit out to the home screen or something like that. So we're gonna have to go ahead and run this again. So I guess this actually does bring you further in the level. Okay, on the right here, okay, you can't see my mouse. On the right of the screen, there's a number. I think that's your score. On the left, I don't know if that's like time. Oh, it went up to 1,000. I don't know what that means exactly. I don't know what the number 3 is either. Yeah, I do not know. Personally speaking, I've never been one to care much about score in these games. I know it's a big thing for a lot of people who like these games, but I just never thought playing for score was that interesting for myself personally. Even if they often kind of make the games around this kind of idea. But I kind of just like the idea of just kind of, you know, finishing the game whatever way works for you, you know? Like instead of optimizing for score specifically. It'd be nice to know if this actually is like more powerful. These guys take a long time to kill, which takes time away from like clearing all these other things. So yeah, some of these enemies make it like they seem to be designed to make it hard to actually kill them because of the way that their bullets work, and it kind of feels a little annoying. Like maybe if nothing else, maybe the now how do you maybe they were better suited for later in the game or something. I'm wondering, like in these parts where they just have these relentless waves, like it's one thing to go between the bullets, but I don't know like how to actually clear those guys out, you know, because stuff is still spawning in. And like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't seem like the kind of game where you can just survive and then eventually what's on the screen will fly off, you know. There's some shmups that you can just you know, you can just avoid things and make it through the game that way. Whereas this, it seems like it's very necessary to actually actively kill this stuff. So when you get in these situations where you're stuck just trying to squeeze between these waves of bullets and you can't actually get in a position to kill things, it seems like things get out of control pretty rapidly. So I'm not sure if there's something else intended in the way to play or something that I'm not doing right. But definitely feels kind of weird to me. It's that one bullet. I don't want to do this. Darn it. Oh, jeez. It's still a little touchy. I just tried to make a tiny little adjustment there and ended up eating it. I mean, maybe I should just go on to another level. It's probably going to be harder, but change the scenery, I suppose. Oh gosh, okay. I'm not very good with it. the keyboard either, unfortunately. Oh, jeez, again. Just not very good with the keyboard. It might be nice also to have some control options, you know. Set the key bindings. Someone might, for instance, think it's nice to use WASD instead of the arrow keys. You know, I've been mostly spending my time playing games that use WASD, so sometimes that can be nice. Yeah, so these guys are really quite interesting because you can't really get in front of them. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do here? I mean, I can... There are there are spaces in there that you can technically get between, but it's pretty rough. Okay, that got a little confusing for a second. I think, let me see again. No, that's the wrong key. Maybe I'm just too close to the screen or something. I just kind of lost track of myself for a second. I'm not quite fast enough to really maneuver between those while in that mode. Gosh. It's just hard to see even, like, these are really fast moving for that kind of maneuvering. And yeah, I mean the visuals on again the clarity, the visual clarity of everything is really kind of a big deal, and like I said, it's really not that bad in any way, but it's also like not really ideal. Just the amount of kind of visual flourishes on everything does add a lot of visual noise that does make it harder than it otherwise would be, just for the simple fact that it takes your brain longer to just kind of figure everything out when you look at a different part or something. I tried to move. It could have even been like just the input lag or something. But yeah, like when I have to like look back at myself or see where my hitbox is to weave between tiny bullets and stuff, when you have all this kind of visual stuff that you can see surrounding my character, it definitely kind of obfuscates that, and you really have to, it takes your brain just a moment longer to really figure that out. So it's definitely a situation where it would probably be slightly easier if some of the flash was kind of toned down. And what could be a good option is you could actually, you know, if you go ahead and create an options menu, which you definitely should in my opinion, you know, add in some visual options. So like you could potentially just tone down some of the flashiness for somebody who maybe just doesn't want to be distracted as much, wants a more just watch more visual clarity while they're playing. They don't care about like losing some of the flashiness. You could also just kind of, you know, just like tweak the opacity of the effects or something. So rather than just turning them off entirely, you could just let the player kind of tweak it to their tastes. It wouldn't just go away. It would just be, you know, something they could tune. So yeah, this is, I mean, it's challenging, but again, I wish I could just use the gamepad. I would be doing better. I haven't seen a lot of variety so far in the types or anything of enemies. Is this gonna be helpful? Alright, everything is different colors. It's hard to navigate. I don't really like the rainbow bullets as much. They just a little bit of visual confusion that they're throwing in the mix there. They look completely different from the black ones. That's better. So it is, all right. I was looking up at the top. I didn't quite see myself running into that. It is supposed to be I guess the primary twist of the game is the idea of being closer to the enemies as you kill them, as far as score goes. So also that has happened more than once where they just come in off the sides, which there are little warning indicators, but again, they just don't really stand out to me. It's kind of just another... They also apparently are sometimes... They come out like not quite long enough or something before the enemy actually appears. Not great. Yeah, it's kind of weird because sometimes the red things they show up and then there's like a space of time before the enemy shows up, and then other times it's like almost instantly after the little red warning things show up, the enemy shows up. So it almost seems like it's inconsistent. I don't know how much the case that is. It's really that kind of little curve shape is annoying to try and do with the 8-direction arrow keys here. I actually wonder if the gamepad is meant to support like an analog movement, or if it's also 8 directions. Well, that guy's really annoying. Gosh darn it. And that kind of thing, unfortunately, because I let off, I was holding down and then I let off at like pretty much the moment I ran into that bullet, and that's one of those things that the input lag can actually end up killing you. Which is like, you know, most classic 2D games have, you know, VSync on them or whatever, but I'm very used to playing games without any VSync on exclusive full screen. Yeah, I don't like how those guys just show up almost exactly when the little warning symbol appears. It's one of those things you have to kind of be more of the mind to memorize the level, and I just don't care about memorization. So, and when I'm doing playtests and I'm talking all the time, I don't have the focus for that kind of thing. You know, it affects my play, but that's the only way to do playtests, so I just have to live with it. So yeah, that's another thing. Like if I wasn't recording, I could focus more, and then we could potentially figure out a little more of this. Again, I tried to move, couldn't move fast enough. So yeah, some of those patterns are really tough. Let's go ahead and try this one. Interesting. Alright, these guys you have to get rid of. Oh no, those guys are... Surprisingly, we are still alive. I don't know what hit me. I actually didn't see that at all. I wish I could go back and watch that again, because I did not see any bullet coming at me. I wasn't like looking directly at myself, you know, I was looking up further, but so I don't know how much of that was like purely my own fault, or like if there's some element of the visuals that wasn't quite clear enough. The thing is very flashy. That was dumb. These are very fast moving bullets. Oh my gosh, they're very fast moving. They're very hard to like try to weave between or anything in any way. If you really want to challenge those guys and try and get behind them like that and to shoot them. Obviously not impossible in any way. It's just one of those things where you end up in just a lot of situations that are really... Gosh. I cannot see where the bullets are amongst that. Like when they're all overlapping like that, I can't see where the white parts are. If that even matters, I'm not even sure about that. But yeah, it seems like there's just a lot of situations where you can get into that are just very disadvantageous with the way the bullet patterns work. Ends up being the kind of thing where you kind of have to almost sort of end up being more of a memory-based game where you find like an optimal route through the level, you know. And some people might like that kind of thing, you know. I don't personally care for that as kind of a design goal. I like things to be more fluid for the player, that they can kind of make it up as they go along, you know. So personally, I think it's better to kind of design a game around that kind of play where you can, you know, in every situation there's like a way out, and you know, you don't get into these places where it's like, oh, like once you set these things in motion, it's almost impossible to survive, that kind of thing. And it sort of seems, I mean, I don't know that it's technically impossible to get out of these situations. It's probably not, but it does get very tough with the way some of these bullet patterns are designed. Why are they all different colors? I don't see why the bullets need to be different colors. Like the gray ones they just threw in the mix all of a sudden. Like they're just harder to see black bullets. So yeah, you know, sometimes... Oh, I did not mean to... I don't know why. I did not mean to move to the left, but I hit the left for some reason. That's one of those things sometimes, just because of the fact that I'm not used to using the arrow keys. Sometimes I do weird things like that. But yeah, sometimes when the bullets aren't uniform, that can just be one of the other things. Just makes it harder to, just slightly harder for your brain to quickly process everything. These games really push that kind of thing to the limit, so you end up in kind of dangerous territory, you know, trying to add all the visual flashiness. Okay. That was an interesting design choice. Okay, so very strange. So you know, all these guys on the left again with that bullet pattern. I don't know. Maybe there is some other trick to it, but they seem to just kind of wall you off with the bullets they constantly spew. So as you can see, I was just constantly being pushed to the right, and then all of a sudden this giant just wall of enemies just flows into the right side where I was, and I died. Again, there wasn't really much of a warning. The little warning thing the things popped up, but it was very brief before all the enemies came in. Not to mention, like, I couldn't have known it was going to be that many enemies and they were going to come that far into the screen, that kind of thing. So, you know, it's kind of mean. But again, you know, if you're of the mind, you're going to kind of memorize the pattern of the level and that kind of thing, then, you know, maybe you'll account for that. So I kind of like those patterns, you know, those are pretty straightforward. And here we go with all the nasty ones. Oh. And I'm just not very good with the arrow keys here. Well, accidentally got in front of that. I feel really bad about this. Yeah, I'm really hurting for that gamepad support. Let's go ahead and try out our last level here. Okay, there's a little pause there in the walls. What is going on? Those enemies blend in the background so much. Alright, so yeah, so unfortunately what's going on here is I'm trying to look where I'm shooting because I'm trying to figure out if my bullets are actually hitting anything or not. So I'm kind of looking up towards the middle of the screen while my ship, or whatever you call it, is kind of at the bottom. And of course in this kind of game you kind of have to almost stare at yourself sometimes to actually make sure you're avoiding bullets. And you can't look at both, so you can't look where you're shooting and look at yourself at the same time, so you have to choose one or the other. In that situation I should have been looking at myself, but I'm trying to figure out like if my bullets are actually hitting what they need to be, and it's really quite hard to see that sometimes, unfortunately. Those square things, it's not very clear like where their hitbox even is. So again, I'm just trying to like divide my attention here between these, you know, the 2 points of interest, which is where I'm shooting and where I am. But all the enemies in this stage just really blend in. That doesn't help at all, because the background is like the same color. Please don't sweep inward. I don't like those gray ones. The gray ones are blending into my actual bullets that I'm shooting. Alright. Pushing the wrong key. So yeah, occasionally I die just because I moved too fast and I didn't switch to the slow moving mode. Requires a bit of dexterity again. I'm just not that good with the keyboard. I cannot see enough with those purple enemies. So yeah, unfortunately the visual elements seem to just kind of get worse and worse. Not to say it's... I mean, this is pretty bad with the fact that the enemies actually blend in so much. Overall, the game isn't that bad in terms of the visual clarity like I mentioned when I first started, but like here where it's all white, when the flashes of me shooting things and killing them just kind of sort of bloom lit and it just kind of covers up everything, that's really not good. Yeah, so as I was saying, it's not bad, but it could definitely be improved. Go back to this one. It seems to be kind of a theme, like coloring the enemies similarly to the background. Which is kind of funny. I don't have the dexterity to do what I'm trying to do here with the keyboard. I still don't know, like, if this does more on like a single enemy. It's really not clear to me, like how the damage. Oh my gosh, how the damage compares between the two shot types. Like, there's the fact that the spread shot is obviously going to do more if you're like hitting an enemy with all 3 shots versus only one of them, but even with that, I really have no idea like how the different damage types compare. That was kind of weird. I wasn't moving. I kind of expected none of the bullets were going to hit me. Maybe the enemy, while it was still alive, was moving ever so slightly. You know, that caused a little bit of a drift in the waves of bullets that I couldn't quite see. Ah, those yellow enemies. They're exactly where I needed them not to be. It's a little dangerous to get that close because I don't know exactly when they start shooting. Which means they could like kill me instantly if I'm just right where they emit bullets, you know. Yellow guy's kind of hiding. Again, it's actually more than I realized before. That some of the enemies really kind of blend in quite a bit. Like, you can see when the yellow enemies actually shoot their bullets, they have this glow effect that just kind of makes them just kind of blend into everything. Ugh. Well, yeah, I don't know what else to do as far as playtesting goes. Probably a good time to wrap it up. You know, the numbers at the top here, maybe they're like a high score. It kind of came with numbers before I started playing, so I don't know if they were just high scores that were kind of in the game build or something already. But yeah, I think I probably said about all there is to say. I was a little disappointed in the visual clarity kind of more and more as I played the game. I kind of found more things that just kind of rubbed me wrong in that regard. It would definitely be nice to have that a little toned down. You know, the flashiness, there's a lot of just little things that go into this sort of thing where, you know, your brain is just is already working so fast in this kind of game, making very tiny adjustments, and updating the visual information in your brain very rapidly. So when it comes to just these little things that just make it ever so slightly harder to identify exactly where things are and what things are, these little visual elements end up making a big difference for this kind of game that's very black and white in terms of success. If you take one hit, you fail, which is it's a big price to pay when it comes to stuff that is caused by the actual visual design of the game. Apart from that, I think, in my opinion, some of the bullet patterns are really kind of mean in sort of a way that it's not just that they're hard, they're just kind of I don't know what other way to describe it would be, but they're very kind of problematic to deal with, and it's not always very clear like how to go about dealing with the kinds of situations they put you in. So in my opinion, I think that could be better. I like the idea of even if I die, if I fail, that I could kind of see what I was supposed to do different, that kind of thing. I think that's a mark of a good design. Whereas in this case, it's a lot of times it's like, how do I even survive this situation? And then you die, and then, you don't really learn from that necessarily. It can be hard to learn from that unless, maybe there's some tricks to the way that the game was intended to be approached, or the levels were intended to be approached, that I haven't figured out, but it's not very obvious to me, Maybe there's, I don't want to feel like I have to go back and like study my play to figure out an optimal route and then memorize that and that kind of thing. I don't really want to play a shmup in that manner. I want to, like I mentioned before, have a more fluid experience with it, where I can just kind of apply raw skill and go at it whatever way I feel like. I mean, not literally anyway, but just without having to have intimate knowledge of the game beforehand. And there were the little warning things on the side. I really feel like they were really inconsistent. But there was a lot of times when they popped up and the enemy just comes out almost instantly, and that makes it doesn't seem very useful to me. So those things I think were probably like the biggest things I noticed, and the other thing was the lack of options and stuff. The gamepad didn't work. That was a big bummer. Obviously it can be added in. It's not that big of a deal, but just the fact that I couldn't actually play it this time with the gamepad to not be able to blame my poor keyboard arrow key skills on my play. I could have done a little better with the gamepad, but nevertheless, hopefully this was useful to you. I think it's a cool game. It has a lot of solid design elements in it already, and it's definitely, it's clear that the developer understands the elements of shmup design and everything to put together a well-constructed game. But hopefully, hopefully you found some things you could tweak based on my playtest, and let me know if you have any questions. And I will see you in the next video.